Hello. Hello. Yep. Hello. I just wanted to talk really quick about Mars. Mars just went into Libra today, and it got me thinking about how Mars has been touching on all the different generations Plutos since the retrograde, because Mars went retrograde late last year. It was late last year. And, everybody felt it, but especially the boomers, I think, because all of them have Pluto in Leo. And that is where Mars spends its time in retrograde, right? Maybe I can take this back in time. Mhm. Because I don't quite remember what day it was, what the dates were, but I think maybe it was December. Stationing, yeah. See, early December, stationing retrograde. And here in Leo. And I think that sparked somewhat of an evolutionary uh, leveling up for Mars. I did a little bit of research about Mars, and there's a difference between the Greek version of Mars, who is actually Aries, which is interesting because Mars is the ruler of Aries. So, the system is interesting. And the Roman Mars, which was more about honor and, like fighting for your, land, for your country, for your people, more like patriotic, a little bit more political, actually a lot more political. Mars was the god that was called on for political leaders so that they could like be like a badass. So we could go back and see that Mars evolved from this idea of just destruction and chaos to an idea of fighting for honor and strength. Um, yeah. And so, yes. So Mars is about self-awareness, the awareness of yourself, the self. And as Mars is conjuncting with our natal Plutos, yeah, as Mars is conjuncting with all of our generational natal Plutos, there's something about self-awareness that's being triggered, and it's about a soul purpose, a self-awareness about our soul purpose. And as it's gone from Leo from the boomers through, and it retrograded right there. So it's almost like, hey, you know, it went back into Cancer, I believe, also right there. So beyond the generational touching generationally of our natal Plutos, Mars has been went back and forth the end of last year, beginning of this year, through Cancer and Leo, kind of going back and forth because of the retrograde action. And, Cancer is ruled by the moon, and Leo is ruled by the sun. And so our masculine and feminine energies were being activated by this self-awareness and deep inside of us, and also with like family issues and the self, this the core self. And so there were a lot of things woken up at that time. And since we might. I don't know if we have anybody alive still with Pluto and Cancer. It might just be a little bit too old, but maybe the really really old timers. Huh? Yeah, possibly. So it's just interesting that this retrograde started. Waking up this self-awareness. So I want to go back to now. Mm, where Pluto is just going into Libra, and that's where my Pluto is in Libra. A lot of my generation, my friends, my peers, we're all in our, you know, 40s, 50s, and our sole purpose for being here, because those of us that have Pluto and Libra, it's all about relationships and learning how to do relationships different after all of the madness that, like our parents being divorced or not, or um, just the way that our generation, as Pluto and Libra people, saw our parents' relationships. It was something that we paid close attention to because it was our sole purpose to have different kinds of relationships that would be like a seed for, you know, new generations so that we could like figure some shit out, and it's just one of the things about having Pluto and Libra. It's one of the surface things, but so as Mars comes into Libra for people in my generation, we're gonna be experiencing relationship things, you know, and um it feels like here's a time that comes that if you're in a relationship that isn't aligned, that isn't basically taking you both forward evolutionarily, It might be the end. It might be the end of that relationship. There might be like sparks and anger and fears that come up. And when the fears come up and you can't come together with your partner, then obviously you're probably not going to feel like that, like security, being able to try to figure things out together. And I believe that's really going to start coming into like our personal lives right now. It's this idea of whether or not we can get through relationship difficulties. Yeah. It's just some of the things that I was thinking about. Mars was just recently in Virgo and affecting all of the people who are basically like Gen X, you know. Just there were a few tragedies and people who were Gen Xers that left this realm, you know. And it's interesting to think that it was a soul contract. There was some kind of a purpose behind that. Some of those, at least one of those tragic events. Anyways, I just wanted to make this a really quick video, really, really quick. And so I might talk some more about this subject. It's, it was just kind of brewing in my head a little. Um, I just want to point out the different levels of self-awareness that we are experiencing on the collective because Mars going into Libra, our self-awareness is going to be within the context of the relationship. Now, um, uh, um, have a good whatever, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye. Peace.